Hello and very warm welcome to English News Bulletin on Met News. People's Defense Forces YPG have liberated the area of Tilberek following an operation against the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant armed group. According to the information received, the YPG conducted an operation to rescue the area on 21st of February. The Al-Qaeda-linked groups have said to have suffered heavy losses. YPG press officer Redur Khalil said the operation has been going on from 12 p.m. on Friday until 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. He added that many small villages have been liberated by the YPG in the operation. According to YPG press office statement, YPG forces captured 42 members of ISIS and 11 groups members and killed 50, and 6 civilians were rescued. Sinan Mehmet, the co-president of Rojava's People's Assembly, was recently in Norway in order to draw attention to the revolution in Rojava and the project of democratic autonomy. According to an article appearing in Yeni Özgür Politika, Mehmet's visit was organized by Rojava Daryan, the president of the Kurdistan groups with the Norwegian Labour Party.
During these meetings, Mehmet answered questions on the recent proclamations of autonomy within Rojava's 3 cantons and the state of national unity among the Kurds. Mehmet said she met with various Norwegian officials and added, "The meetings had gone well, and I had informed the officials on the progress of affairs in Rojava and the project of democratic autonomy more generally." The party members were most interested in the canton system and considered the system to be a suitable model for the Middle East. Party officials also shared their desire to send a committee to Rojava within the shortest possible time frame in order to know the region better. She also explained how the United States encouraged various opposition elements to initiate a civil war, but that the Kurds of Rojava did not play this game and chose a third way, saying, "Today's developments have proven that the preference for a third way was the right decision. In the last couple of years, more than 100,000 people have lost their lives and close to 1 million have been forced to flee their homes." Mehmet emphasized that the Geneva II meetings achieved absolutely no progress and that fighting continues throughout Syria. Mehmet also affirmed that the YPG and YPJ defense forces were composed of Kurds as well as all other peoples of the region and that they viewed no religious or ethnic group as their enemy. However, Mehmet also stressed that the YPG would respond to any attack. Mehmet took part in a people's meeting together with many Kurds, most from northern and eastern Kurdistan, living in and around Oslo at the Kurdistan Cultural Society. Mehmet explained about the attitude of Kurdish parties outside the PYD and stressed the importance of national unity during this process and explained the attitude of other Kurdish parties and their relationship to the PYD, saying, "Since the beginning, we defended a system in which all the parties of Rojava would have a place. However, when this did not happen, we accepted the 2-assembly system. Young girls and boys sacrificed their lives to protect this system. There is no family that does not have a son or daughter fighting in the ranks of the YPG. On the other hand, ENKS members are not even able to attend meetings most of the time because of disagreements among themselves. Once more, some of them attacked the YPG together with organizations like the ISIS and the Al-Nusra Front." Sinan Mehmet lastly talked about the cantons and foreign relations and added, "Even countries which seem to have supported Rojava, such as Russia, have not done anything in practice. Despite this, they attached much importance to diplomacy and intend to explain how they will establish a democratic system to the rest of the world."
A new draft law pertaining to the National Intelligence Organization, MIT, that gives extraordinary powers to the organization, including legal immunity for MIT officials. In this draft law passed, the law will introduce penalties of up to 12 years imprisonment for anyone who publishes highly classified MIT documents, a move which critics say is designed to deter journalists from making secret documents public.
The draft law has received criticism. The draft bill would ensure a legal cover for Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who has found himself struggling with the corruption investigation that went public on December 17, 2013. If adopted, the law will allow MIT to conduct operations against possible threats overseas. The organisation will also be authorised to wiretap phone conversations overseas upon the orders of the Under-Secretary and his aide. According to the draft law, if prosecutors receive a tip about MIT officials or affiliates, they will initially seek the organisation's opinion about the authenticity of the tip. If MIT says the tip concerns a duty or operation of the organisation, then prosecutors will not be able to launch an investigation. In addition, prosecutors will not be able to launch investigations into claims against MIT officials coming from unidentified individuals or individuals using fake names. Public prosecutors, acting on tips sent to their offices, recently stopped several trucks on their way to Syria. The trucks were allegedly escorted by MIT officers. Even though the government said the trucks were delivering humanitarian aid to war-torn Syria, claims surfaced that the vehicles were filled with weapons to be delivered to al-Qaeda-affiliated groups in Syria. Critics say the government is working to prevent future searches of trucks escorted by MIT officers en route to Syria by prosecutors on suspicion of transporting weapons. The draft law also introduces severe penalties for obtaining and publishing MIT documents. If this publication makes its way in the print or visual media, the sentence will then be increased to up to 12 years. In addition, if the draft law is passed, MIT will have unfettered access to the archives and database of every ministry, and it will be able to collect any data on citizens. What is more, the law requires private companies to hand over consumer data and technical equipment when requested.
BDP co-chair Selahattin Demirtas answered journalists' questions on MIT draft bill at an opening ceremony in Ahmet. Demirtas said the draft bill on MIT does not constitute a legal basis for the process of democratic resolution.
The BDP co-chair Selahattin Demirtas emphasized that the draft bill on the MIT National Intelligence Organization did not constitute a legal basis for the process of democratic resolution, as claimed, but was designed to protect MIT officials involved in the talk process, adding, "This is not what we mean when we talk about a legal basis or foundation for the talks or negotiations. It is not correct to portray it like this. A legal basis for the process cannot be prepared in this way. Secondly, other articles of this draft bill are a serious threat to democratic principles and will increase violations both of the security of the individual and of personal freedom. We do not agree with the portrayal of this draft bill as a contribution to the democratization of Turkey or as an attempt to strengthen MIT. It is definitely a bill to increase the powers of the Prime Minister and to consolidate his government. As the BDP, we are absolutely opposed to this bill." Demirtas said the following regarding attacks on the BDP's democratic autonomy project. Democratic autonomy, that is, the strengthening of local government, popular participation, the people being able to obtain services, education and culture in their own language, will not harm anyone in Turkey. If you look at the circles that are attacking the BDP, they do not have a single democratization project. Their heads are fuddled with fascism and racism, and they have lost the ability to think. They are trying to retain their base support. We are sorry, but we will construct democracy in Turkey in the framework of democratic autonomy. This is our right. It is not in violation of the Constitution, of laws, or of international conventions. Demirtas added that the Kurds would not abandon their demands due to verbal assaults, saying, "Those who banned our language and culture and are making a great fuss about the Kurds being educated in their own language, this country was not left to them as an inheritance. It belongs to all of us. Kurdish is our mother tongue. Kurdistan and these lands are our motherland."
Anti-terror investigating magistrate Gina Duye, who is in charge of the investigating, and assistant magistrate Christopher Tesser and Lawrence Levitt sent an international laudatory letter to the Turkish authorities. They requested information regarding the telephone conversation of Ömer Güney had with persons in Turkey, but they couldn't.
It has emerged that one of the numbers registered in the phone belonging to Paris massacre suspect Ömer Güney is that of the MIT Turkish Intelligence Service, Erzurum Regional Office. In the document published by Fırat News Agency, the French magistrates asked the Turkish authorities to identify numbers called by Güney between 29th of November 2012 and 25th of December 2012, when he last went to Turkey. The Karşı newspaper used the service for identifying unknown numbers to inquire the owner of numbers beginning 0442 cited in the document. The answer received was National Intelligence Organization attached to the Department of Security. The document published by Fırat News Agency on 2nd of February 2013 under the heading "Whose numbers are these Ömer Güney was in contact with?" consists of two parts. Also in the document is a reference to certain numbers that may have been within the borders of France between the 30th of August 2012 and 20th of January 2013. Turkish authorities are asked whether the Turkish Secret Service know these numbers. In the second part of the document, there are questions regarding Ömer Güney's relationship with certain of his relatives. Following the publication of the document by ANF, the BDP Deputy President Beştaş applied to the Public Prosecutor's Office in Ankara to request information regarding these telephone calls. But BDP could not get any answer until now.
The proclamation of autonomy by the people of Rojava was debated in the Swedish Parliament. The debate follows the release of the Swedish government's 2014 foreign policy declaration, as different parties within Parliament are offering their views on Swedish foreign policy.
Bodil Sibelius, the foreign policy spokesperson of the environmental party The Greens, referred to the proclamation of democratic autonomy in Rojava by saying that it could cut the Gordian knot in Syria. Rojava is one of many topics currently under discussion, including the crisis in Ukraine, NSA spying in Europe and Swedish government cooperation, and the Swedish role in NATO operations in Afghanistan. Among other issues that came up on the agenda was the lack of press freedoms in Turkey. Desire Petrus, an MP from Christian Democratic Party, reminded her colleagues that 70 journalists remained imprisoned in Turkey. Amine Kakabava, an MP from the Left Party, also drew attention to violations of human rights in both Iran and Turkey. Kakabava added that women of Kurdistan, Syria and Palestine should be included in any peace process in order to build an enduring peace in the Middle East, and that a responsibility fell to Sweden to help in this process. Christian Democratic Party MP Robert Halef spoke of how there was no Kurdish or Assyrian representation at Geneva II, and said that if a lasting peace is to be built, a new conference should take place in which these peoples would be represented. Halef also spoke of atrocities committed in Syria by Al-Qaeda, requested a call for a ceasefire from the UN Security Council, under which prisoners would also be released. Left Party MP Jacob Johnson reminded those present of the closure of the DTP, which had much such gains in the 2009 local elections, the imprisonment of thousands of Kurdish activists, and the continuing assaults on the BDP. Johnson brought attention to the ongoing KCK trials, saying that the special courts established to try them were in contradiction to the European Constitution. He also pointed to recent attempts at curbing freedom of expression and the independence of the judiciary, including the recently introduced Internet law and the law on the organization of judges and prosecutors.
Well, the local elections in Turkey is getting close. The political parties have intense their work in campaign for elections. People's Democratic Party, HDP, sets up by civil society organizations, leftist groups and individuals from social sectors marginalized by neoliberal policies, works to become the voice of Turkey's voiceless. The Gezi Park protest last summer demonstrated the extent of popular dissatisfaction with the ruling Justice and Development Party, AKP, and its authoritarian mode of governance.
The Gezi Park protest last summer demonstrated the extent of popular dissatisfaction with the ruling Justice and Development Party, AKP, and its authoritarian mode of governance. However, the street protest also illustrated the lack of a viable political alternative to the AKP. People's Democracy Party, HDP, has been set up to fill Turkey's democratic opposition vacuum. The HDP is the outcome of efforts to unite the Turkish left, BDP, politically marginalized population and civil society under one electoral roof. Although the HDP held its first extraordinary congress in October 2013, its roots lie in the pre-2011 general elections period. Abdullah Öcalan, the Kurdistan Workers' Party PKK leader, had long called for an umbrella party to bring all leftist movements in Turkey together. He reckoned that the Peace and Democracy Party BDP, which is currently represented in parliament, appealed only to the Kurds and confined itself to the southeast of the nation, failing to make a nationwide impact. In his view, an umbrella party could fill what he saw as a big void on the left flank of Turkish opposition. Öcalan's call yielded its first results during the 2011 general election when the BDP aligned with some 20 socialist parties and movement to form the Labour, Democracy and Freedom Bloc. The coalition managed to win 36 parliamentary seats. Following the elections, the bloc continued its activities as the People's Democratic Congress, HDP, an organisation bringing politicians, civil society and representatives of marginalised social segments together at the grassroots level. The HDP attempted to incorporate the Kurdish question into the general politics of Turkey and bring together a variety of political organisations under one banner. The HDP includes a variety of minority groups including Alevis, Armenians, Circassians, Laz, Arabs and Assyrians, as well as feminist, socialist, far-left parties, environmental movements, communities for the disabled and lesbian and gay communities, LTGB. From the very beginning, the HDP has acted as a platform for the political unification of these underrepresented groups. The HDP, in turn, established the HDP on October 16, 2013, electing Ertuğrul Kürkçü, a prominent Turkish socialist, and Sabahat Tuncel, a leading figure in the Kurdish movement, as co-chairs. By the establishment of the party, HDP has not been eliminated but will aid the HDP by continuing its work to unite civil society, excluded population and dissident political groups in regional assemblies at the grassroots level. The HDP's diverse membership is a clear indication of the plurality that the party claims to represent. If plurality is one central aspect of the party, the emphasis placed on the disadvantaged and oppressed groups, a reflection of its leftist orientation, is another. 4 members of the BDP who transferred their membership to the newly formed HDP are known for their left-wing positions. For instance, the HDP's co-chair Ertuğrul Kürkçü was the president of the Socialist Turkey's Revolutionary Youth Federation, Devgenç, during the 1970s. Women also play a central role in the party administration in the same fashion as its sister party BDP. This reflects Kurdish women's high level of political activism. The HDP has adopted a co-chairmanship leadership system in line with its parity principles in all levels. The party has also allocated a 10% quota for LTGB individuals. HDP's first test will be the local elections that will be held on March 30, 2014. While BDP nominates candidates for the local election in the east and southeastern parts of Turkey, the HDP enters the elections in cities in the western and middle parts of Turkey. HDP's election campaign is centered around the necessity for the self-management of people. Its election slogan is, "We govern ourselves and our cities." The vote in Istanbul will be of key importance. Istanbul is Turkey's largest city and Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan himself is one of its former mayors. The Istanbul Metropolitan Municipality is an Achilles heel for Erdogan and his Justice and Development Party, AKP. A defeat in the municipal poll could have fatal political consequences. HDP nominates strong co-candidates in line of its parity principle in Istanbul. Siri Sariya Ünder, who is currently a parliament member of HDP and who was at the forefront of the struggle to save the trees in Gezi Park and become an iconic figure of the protest. And Pinar Aydınlar, a young woman who is writer and a folk music singer. HDP's success in local elections, especially in Istanbul, where it expects to make a breakthrough with strong and viable candidates, will ultimately depend on its ability to convince a wide range of ideologically split Turkish and Kurdish voters that its message and policies offer a real alternative to the AKP.
Now commenting on this, the co-chair of HDP, Ertuğrul Kürkçü, will join us from Turkey Live. Good evening to you, sir.
Good evening.
Firstly, I would like to thank you for joining us. We tried to introduce HDP. But just to get a better view, I would like to ask you, what difference does HDP has compared to other political parties in Turkey?
Yeah, first of all, HDP is the conglomeration of several political, social, cultural, and belief movements, which altogether are the victims of the Turkey's ongoing monolithic state structures. Therefore, we are not only a party, but a social movement, and we are a coalition of the oppressed as such, not only literally, but also in reality. We are making a big, huge coalition of left and opposition forces, aligning their strength with the Kurdish Liberation Movement. Therefore, we are speaking about a party in form, but a coalition of the oppressed in a sense.
Mm-hmm. And another question. The difficulties that you come across with, could you tell us, as a party, is there any difficulties that you face?
Yeah, the basic difficulty is, of course, the repressive election and party laws in Turkey, which restricts participation as well as governance. The very high election barrier of 10% is still an obstacle in the party's progress and ascension to local power, both in municipal councils and the mayoralties. Therefore, this is the biggest difficulty. Of course, the other difficulty is the media's biased reporting. As a matter of fact, Turkish mainstream media is somehow turning a blind eye on the HDP's activities and words. Therefore, we have to create our own channels of communication with the public in general and our grassroots organizations. But I can say that we are coping up with those difficulties, particularly through social media, our communication networks, and thanks to television channels like Nuce and domestic channels, İMEC and Hayat TV, and of course our newspapers, Evrensel and Özgür Gündem. All in all, those channels which are uncontrolled by the forces of order provide us a useful channel. Of course, mainstream media is very important because it's the almost the major way of communication with the public in general. Mm-hmm. However, we are trying to cope up with their blindness and trying to catch the public opinion's attention through election offices in districts, through marches and through outdoor rallies. We are doing our best, but of course we are faced with media censorship and national election barrier, as well as the restrictions coming out of the party law, which hinders uninterrupted propaganda through several bans on outdoor actions and advertisements and other restrictions on propaganda in the mother tongue.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, there is, I don't know if it's still actually, if we should call peace process. What sort of role would the HDP, as a HDP party, will play in the what's called the peace process for the Kurdish resolution for Kurdish peace process?
You mean the role of HDP in the ongoing peace process?
Yes.
Did I get it correctly?
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah.
Okay. As a matter of fact, the peace talks are going on between Mr. Öcalan in the İmralı Island, the leader of the Kurdish Liberation Movement, the Kurdish people, and the state services. But our former party comrades from the BDP have been regularly going to the island, carrying Öcalan's messages both to the BDP and to the KCK. However, Sırrı Süreyya Önder, our deputy chair, is also one of the members of the team in taking place in the İmralı talks, and he is also informing us about Öcalan's decisions and his negotiations with the state administration. However, we cannot speak about a widespread peace action on the part of the government. Therefore, what we are seeking now is to ensure that masses participate in the process through raising their demands, through pressing for broader rights for Öcalan, for pressure for Öcalan's contacts with the outside world. And of course, we are trying to carry Öcalan's messages to Turkey's majority population, the Turks and non-Kurdish citizens living in bigger cities of the West, in Istanbul, Ankara, Adana, Izmir, and other places. And we are trying to build up a bridge between the Kurdish demands and Turkish people's struggle for freedom. And I think that we are witnessing, having some sort of progress as the tendency among Turkish public for the continuation of the peace process is in progress. At least 70% of all the Turkish public is endorsing the peace talks with Öcalan. Of course, 90% of the Kurdish public is also endorsing. Therefore, we are trying to keep this climate of negotiation vivid, and we are trying to feed it through constant information and negotiations with the Turkish public. However, there is a countercurrent also, particularly backed by the nationalists, ultra-nationalists, fascist and racist sectors of the public, and they are not weak as we could hope, but they have still considerable control on the mood of the Turkish people. Therefore, we are facing harsh attacks, physical attacks by those forces on our party work. Today we have faced with attacks in Izmir's districts of Urla and Karşıyaka and Buca, and also in Istanbul's Kadıköy, and in southern Mediterranean port city of Mersin. Therefore, throughout the election campaign, it's predictable that those kind of attacks and counter action by the militarist, fascist, nationalists may go on, but we are determined to refrain from clashes. We are determined to refrain to keep away from violence, which we are assured that it might harm our image as a force of peace, as a force of negotiation.
Yeah, lastly, can I just ask, sir, what is the HDP's chance of winning the elections? Are you ambitious?
As a matter of fact, we must be sincere that our stakes are not as high as that of BDP in the Kurdish regions. However, we are optimistic that we will be able to get at least a dozen of district mayoralties in the west and northern parts of Turkey. We are hoping that we can get the local mayoralty in the Black Sea coast district of Hopa. We are very optimistic about the outcome of the elections in Konya's Cihanbeyli and Kulu districts, and also in Ankara's Haymana and Polatlı districts, as well as that of Akdeniz district in Mersin, which is already governed by a BDP mayor. And in Mersin, BDP is running for mayoralty, but HDP is supporting them. And in Adana, we are expecting that we can be able to get hold of the local power in the Seyhan district of Adana, and we are hoping that we may have chances in Yüreğir. But in Istanbul and Izmir and other places, we are optimistic that we can double the vote that was gained by the Democratic Society Party in 2009, which was the ancestor of the BDP. And in Istanbul, already the recent polls are, public opinion polls are showing that our support in Istanbul has grown up to 12%. In other places, we are almost doubling almost in everywhere, and we are expecting that we can have a total average of BDP plus HDP around 9 or 10%, which means that we will be able to bury the national election barrier in the ballot boxes on the 3rd of March in the forthcoming local elections.
Well, thank you very much for speaking to us, and we wish you the best luck, the co-chair of HDP.
Thanks much. Thanks for your support for spreading our voice to your English-speaking listeners. Good night, good day.
Thank you, and very warm welcome. Turkish government will have more control over the judiciary. Turkish parliament passes bill giving more government's control over the judiciary.
The Turkish parliament approved reforms to a contentious bill giving the government more control over the judiciary. During a tense all-night debate, 2 lawmakers were injured in a fistfight. The law change will give the Justice Ministry greater control over the Supreme Board of Judges and Prosecutors, HSYK, an independent body in charge of appointing and promoting judges and prosecutors. It would change the makeup of the HSYK and give the Justice Minister the right to launch investigations into its members. The bill had been hotly contested by opposition parties who claim the reform is a bid by the government to limit fallout from a corruption investigation that has affected top allies of Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan. The international community has also warned that Turkey's law change threatens the independence of its judiciary. Top European Union officials had voiced concern over the measure during a Brussels visit by Erdogan in January. They warned Turkey, which aspires to join the European Union, that it must comply with the bloc's democratic principles. The bill sent to President Abdullah Gül for approval. Constitutional Court rejected main opposition Republic People's Party, CHP, application for the cancellation of the regulations.
According to Iraqi's High Commission report for Human Rights, the number of suicide cases among Iraqi youths has increased by 60% compared to 1 year ago. Member of the High Commission for Human Rights, Moussaoura Al-Aswad, told Al-Mada Press that the rate of suicide in Iraq reached 439 people in 2013 due to low life expectancy, social problems and poverty, among other causes. Al-Aswad has asked that the problem will be monitored with the help of religious men, media and civil society organizations, all of which play key roles. The report shows that among the Iraqi provinces, Diyarbakir ranks the first in the rates of suicide, followed by Diyala, Mosul and Baghdad. This was it from us for tonight. We will see you next week on Thursday. Thanks for watching us.